Hello again and welcome to the sixth video of this educational series titled An Overview of Frequency Biomodulation. My name is Dr. Gary Graham and I thank you for joining us again. In this video, we want to discuss a very misunderstood and sometimes controversial subject called pulse frequency therapy, and very often mislabeled as frequency biomodulation because there are many forms of frequency therapy, but very few will produce frequency biomodulation. This video will cover the basics of the frequencies of living tissues and how frequency biomodulation should affect those tissues. Remember that anytime we are speaking of biomodulation, we are referring to the definition of biomodulation that we defined in our previous videos. This is something that all low-level laser manufacturers claim their products will produce to some extent, but few know what it is or why it's even important. Since this is a very complex and multifaceted subject, we will cover this subject over the next 3 videos and take it in short subjects, starting with, what does frequencies have to do with our health in the first place? In the first video, we spoke of the body's memory. And as far as we know, all forms of memory and communication is based on some form of frequency. After all, it is why we have vocal cords and eardrums. However, not all forms of life or even internal functions of all forms of life have vocal cords and eardrums. But all forms and functions of life can communicate by receiving and giving off frequencies. And we know that everything in the universe has a unique and specific resonant signature frequency, and that the body can identify everything it comes in contact with by its signature frequency. We also stated that all things that we know of are corruptible. And when you corrupt the frequency information that the body uses to operate with, then you do not operate properly, which is what we call poor health or disease or even death. This is not a new concept, as Lakhovsky, I believe that's the way it's pronounced, in 1970 stated each atom, element, molecule, cell, or organism substance has its own ideal electrical wavelength and resonance frequency of vibration that coordinates its activities. And Pauling in 1963 stated that at the resonance frequency, which would be the proper frequency of any given substance, energy is maximized and harmonious, or balanced. And he goes on to say that the further a substance deviates from its resonance frequency, the more dissonance and disease occurs. In music, which is all about frequencies, dissonance is defined as the sounding of tones or frequencies that do not blend with each other, meaning they are not harmonious. And he states that the further a substance deviates from its resonance frequency, the more dissonance and disease occurs. First, this means that all living substances can deviate from their proper resonant frequencies, and that this lack of harmony will cause disease, and we have already discussed how this can occur. So Pauling is saying that the more corruption of the frequencies of any living substance, the more imbalances and disease in that substance occurs. There is no doubt that the health of all living substances is dependent on the correct and harmonious frequencies of that substance. And since the human body is the most complex and technically advanced living substance on the planet, we have the most complex and technically advanced frequencies that manage and control the level of our health. So considering that corrupted frequencies are a significant cause of any health issue, utilizing therapeutic frequencies can aid in the healing of almost any health issue. However, before we can begin to discuss how we deliver therapeutic frequencies to the body, I want to first give a quick overview of all the necessary components of frequency therapy. First, low-level laser therapy has all the therapeutic benefits that have been described in the previous videos. But when it is combined with pulse frequencies, it can also become a communication device that is capable of delivering information via pulse frequencies to the body. There are 4 vital components, and they must all be present for low-level laser therapy to communicate information to the body, and they are the same as almost all communication of any kind. First is the language. In the previous video, we defined why wavelengths between 630 and 635 nanometer of coherent electromagnetic energy at a power density of less than 5 milliwatts, commonly called low-level laser, is the energy that the body utilizes to communicate or speak to itself with. So besides all the other benefits of low-level laser, it also acts as the language that the body not only speaks, but also understands. Second is the precision of the frequencies that we utilize. Just like our vocal language, the precision of our frequencies determines the quality of information that we can deliver with low-level lasers. Think of the precision of the frequencies as the enunciation of our words, which is why it takes us years to learn how to control our vocal cords to produce all the different sounds or precise frequencies of our language. Third is the range of frequencies we can produce. The range of frequencies we are able to produce is equal to the range of our vocabulary. It is very possible to verbally communicate with a 1-year-old child, but if you want to discuss highly technical information, you need the vocabulary of a highly educated adult. The body's frequency vocabulary extends to over 120 billion hertz or 120 gigahertz. This is the vocabulary that the body biomodulates its own tissues with. So if we want to biomodulate body tissue with pulse frequencies utilizing low-level laser, we need to be able to produce the most precise and the highest range of frequencies that technology can create while still utilizing the correct language. Then fourth are the frequencies that are produced. When we speak, not only must we speak intelligible words, we must also speak words that convey an intelligible message that is pertinent to the subject matter at hand, or it's just worthless babbling. So we have to actually produce frequencies that the body can interpret as the information it needs to assist the body in correcting corrupted frequencies which are directly related to the specific health issue that we're trying to address. Now, if you can accomplish all four of these components at the same time, then you are able to produce frequency biomodulation of human tissue with low-level laser therapy and help the body restore corrupted frequencies and data so it can heal itself as God designed it to do. So every user has their options. They can purchase a quality low-level laser that pulses, say, 120 pulses a second, and receive all the therapeutic quality of low-level laser that we discussed previously. And a product of this quality or technology should be quite reasonable in cost. If they choose to purchase a programmable pulse frequency low-level laser to perform frequency therapy or frequency biomodulation, they have many different choices. They can purchase a low-level laser that can communicate with one-letter words that are slurred, or all the way to being able to properly pronounce every word in the dictionary and formulate intelligible sentences. These 3 videos should help instruct you how to make that decision. Now we can begin our discussion on how we produce biomodulation therapy, beginning with frequency therapy versus frequency biomodulation. There are many ways to introduce frequencies into the body. They could all be considered frequency therapy, but they will have many different effects on the body. About 80 years ago or so, Dr. Royal Rife developed frequencies to be delivered with EMFs or electrical current. These frequencies were actual physical vibrations that were targeted to specific pathogens to disrupt the cellular walls of those pathogens and destroy them. Similar to the correct pitch or frequency of sound will shatter glass, but not damage any surrounding items, not even your eardrums. Even though this was a very efficient way of destroying specific pathogens, you had to be very precise with your diagnosis of what that pathogen is, plus there were some potentially significant side effects. Also, it did nothing to show the body how to prevent that pathogen from growing back. It is definitely a first aid dose of therapy. Then there were many frequency lists called Rife lists available on the internet and in multiple books. We do not recommend utilizing these frequencies in low-level laser therapy units as they were designed for a totally different dose of therapy and a totally different form of therapy. Other methods too numerous to cover here are still limited and do not utilize the best delivery system that the body recognizes, neither can they produce neuroplasticity, so the nervous system is not in a moldable or corrective environment. Therefore, frequency therapy delivered by any method other than low-level laser therapy does not produce frequency biomodulation in its ideal form. True frequency biomodulation must contain all 4 of the components that we just described, which delivers precise frequencies to the human body in an organized, controlled, and utilizable fashion while the nervous system is under neuroplastic stimulation. We believe that the body still possesses the ability to self-correct corrupted frequencies, and it's always trying to accomplish that task. And usually it does. However, many times our body needs some guidance or assistance to achieve that goal. We do this through frequency biomodulation. Then there are some frequencies or memories that never existed in the body, as the body was never exposed to these environmental compounds, which is why we utilize homeopathic remedies as part of our therapy system. But more on that subject in a later video. This makes true natural energy medicine composed of photobiomodulation, frequency biomodulation, homeopathy, plus several other components, the most advanced method of energy therapy that today's technology can deliver. Next, we ask the question, what is the definition of frequency as utilized in frequency therapy? Each different wavelength of light will also have its own frequency. Wavelength is defined as the distance between one wave of energy to the next within a photon, and identified as the nanometer of that wavelength. The frequency of that wavelength is defined as how many waves pass a given point per second. The different frequencies of light are complex numbers and seldom used in low-level laser therapy. Wavelength is a much simpler method of describing the color or energy of photons, and the only method that is commonly utilized when discussing laser therapy. When we speak of pulse frequency therapy of low-level lasers, we are talking about the number of times we turn the 635 nanometer wavelength of laser light on and off per second. Next, we will discuss what frequencies are commonly utilized in so-called frequency therapy that may confuse you. First, we have superpulse lasers. These lasers have a built-in pulse mechanism that's like a strobe light. These laser diodes pulse very high watts of power for very short periods of time. From what I've seen, these pulses of energy can be in the range of 2 nanoseconds to 200 nanoseconds long, and usually around 100 pulses per second. The reason for this is to achieve deep penetration of infrared wavelengths, which requires high watts of power. Remember the discussion on penetration. The power density, or milliwatts of power, dictates the depth of penetration the energy travels before it's completely dissipated as heat. This has nothing to do with frequency therapy. It is simply a method of safely delivering energy or heat to deeper targeted tissue. Next, we have what is called the duty cycle. This is similar to the superpulse laser in that the laser is actually only on for a percentage of the time. The device usually has a settings from 10 to 100, which have nothing to do with the pulse rate, but only has to do with how much of the time the lasers are running, from 10% to 100% of the time. This is performed by pulsing the laser at some arbitrary pulse rate. Then for each pulse, the laser is on for 10% of the time and then off for 90% of the time, and so on. The reason for this is when you have an infrared laser, you have to change the joules of energy delivered for different tissues. For instance, a finger cannot be treated with the same amount of energy as a leg. Remember that the square centimeters of tissue being irradiated is part of the equation when determining the correct irradiation dose, which is the joules of energy. This allows the manufacturer to build one therapy device to treat multiple areas of the body with the proper dose of energy. This also has nothing to do with frequency therapy. Low-level lasers also have a duty cycle. When you pulse a low-level laser, you are turning the lasers on and off. The duty cycle for low-level lasers is 50%, as the time the laser is on during each pulse is equal to the time that it's off. This also has nothing to do with the pulse frequencies of low-level laser, but just part of the pulsing mechanism. This will also further reduce the amount of energy delivered with low-level laser therapy by 50%, making it even more low-level than most people realize. Then we have continuous wave, which are no pulse frequencies at all. This is when you turn the lasers on, they run continuously until the treatment is over. This is used many times with infrared laser therapy, but it's contraindicated with low-level laser therapy. This is because continuous stimulation of physiology is almost always contraindicated for health. Think of it this way. You can move your arm up and down all day long, and it's a healthy activity for your arm. but hold your arm up and keep it there for hours at a time. This is not only fatiguing, but could possibly be damaging to the limb. We never recommend utilizing continuous wave with low-level laser therapy. Finally, we have just pulsed low-level laser therapy. We previously mentioned how Einstein described the communication system of the body. Just pulsing the laser diode does not produce intelligible information any more than just making random verbal noise is communicating. Then when you select a commercial broadcast TV or radio channel, you are selecting a specific carrier frequency wave. Then the information that you see and hear are also different frequencies carried within those broadcast waves or frequencies. This is not only very similar to how natural energy medicine functions, but it's also how the body's communication system works. Just turning low-level lasers on and off is not frequency therapy, as it does not communicate intelligible information, and the wrong frequencies could possibly produce the wrong information, which could be irritating or possibly even damaging to the body. Next, we'll discuss what are the ranges or bandwidths of frequencies that the body utilizes. A research company in the Ukraine has performed major research on resonant body frequencies and have mapped 3 specific bandwidths of frequencies that the body utilizes to control all of its functions. The first is very low frequencies that match the planetary Earth and brain frequencies. These are mostly below 20 Hertz or 20 pulses per second or so. I believe this is what gives us a stable foundation and literally grounds us to our planet and our environment. This is why getting away from our toxic frequency environment and exposing ourselves to our planetary and environmental frequencies by sitting on the beach or walking through the mountains is really great for your health. Any corruption in these frequencies, I believe, can cause general imbalances between you and your environment, causing an instability in the very foundation of your health. And this instability can compromise your health or retard or even prevent any healing processes from occurring. The second band is much higher, between 40 and 70 gigahertz or 40 to 70 billion cycles per second. This bandwidth is where, for want of a better term, our operating system functions. Similar to a computer, this contains all the programming and data that the body needs to function properly. Any corruption or loss of this data and the body no longer knows how to maintain optimum health any more than your computer will function properly if its operating system becomes corrupted. Corruption of any of these frequencies can cause any malfunction or disease in the body, including death. I heard a neurologist describe the death from Alzheimer's and different forms of dementia like this. It's when the body forgets how to keep vital bodily functions functioning, or the body just finally forgets how to stay alive. This is evident as they have to thicken water for dementia patients in order to keep them from choking, as the body forgets how to separate water from air to keep each traveling down the correct pipes. Now the third bandwidth is even higher, between 80 to 120 gigahertz. These resonant frequencies are the frequencies that the body utilizes to identify who, what, and where of every cell in your body. Every different cell type, organ type, or tissue type has its own specific band or range of resonant signature frequencies. I believe that when cells of any type fluctuate within this normal range, it indicates to the body their age, their health, environment, and so on. This allows the body to make immediate necessary changes in the physiology of this tissue to keep these cells at optimum health. It also alerts the body to any cells that may need to be destroyed. This occurs because all cells have a lifespan, and at a certain age they need to be destroyed and replaced. Or they may just be in the wrong place. For example, the body cannot tolerate a healthy liver cell growing anywhere else in the body besides the liver. Any corruption of these frequencies will lead to chronic and potentially lethal physical illnesses. The first band of frequencies are utilized in many different forms of therapy today with great success. However, the upper 2 bands of frequencies are seldom even mentioned, much less addressed, in any therapeutic procedure that I'm aware of, making the laser pulse or natural energy medicine therapy system even more advanced and unique than other low-level lasers in the marketplace. To summarize the information we covered today, The body has many different forms of communication and delivery systems that can convey information. Just like we have in modern technology, we have everything from the U.S. mail to phones and so on. But if you want to communicate billions of bits of complex, detailed information around the world at the speed of light, we use the internet. So think of the use of coherent electromagnetic energy transferred from cell to cell via optical windows, the body's version of the internet that allows for almost unlimited information about every living cell in your body to be communicated to your central nervous system in real time, 100% of the time. And by the way, where do you think they got the idea to send pulsed coherent energy, or laser, through fiber optic cables around the world at the speed of light as a form of real-time communication? Just one more bit of technology copied from the human body. In our next video, we will continue our discussion of frequency biomodulation. As always, for further questions or information about these videos or laser pulsar system therapy products, please contact me, Dr. Gary Graham, or anyone at these contacts. I want to thank you again for your time.